I know I shouldn't be telling you this, but if you ever see the Ferris wheel lights on at night, don't go near them. Don't take a picture, don't try to get a better look, don't even slow your car down to stare. Pretend you didn't notice. Pretend the lights were never there at all. You probably think I'm exaggerating or maybe setting up some kind of ghost story to pass the time. I wish it was that simple. The truth is uglier, stranger, and a hell of a lot harder to explain. I'm a security guard. Well, was a security guard at a theme park that hasn't been open since before most of you were born. Broken rides, boarded up concession stands, rust flaking off roller coasters that once scraped the sky. On the surface, it looks like every other forgotten amusement park, a graveyard of fun, left to rot. But the rides don't stay dead. Every night, without warning, one of them starts up. Lights snap on, music drifts through the air, machinery groans like it's waking from a nightmare. And when that happens, you don't watch, you don't listen, you don't go near it. Because the rides aren't just running on power, something else is inside them. Something that notices when you notice. There are rules, of course. A whole list of them, though no one ever tells you all of them at once. Some I learned the hard way, and some I wish I hadn't learned at all. To understand why this job exists at all, I need to start from the beginning. The first time I saw the park, it looked like a crime scene nobody bothered to tape off. The roller coasters towered over the skyline like skeletal remains, their tracks jagged and rusted, streaked with the orange-brown stains of decades without maintenance. The midway was worse. What used to be bright booths filled with cheap prizes and popcorn were now sagging under ivy and mildew. Stuffed animals the rain had long since gutted still dangled from their hooks, their button eyes cloudy and blind. A faded clown face grinned on the side of a cracked wall, the paint peeling in strips that looked too much like skin. I thought, this is what I'm getting paid for? Guarding a junkyard of broken dreams? The man who walked me in, my so-called supervisor, didn't bother with introductions. Just a heavy flashlight in my hand and instructions barked in a voice that sounded like he'd been repeating the same lines for decades. Stay out of the rides. If you hear music, don't follow it. If the Ferris wheel lights come on, don't look too long. Got it? I laughed. I couldn't help it. You know how insane that sounds, right? The place doesn't even have power. He didn't laugh back. His expression never changed. You'll learn quick, he said, before walking me to the main gate and leaving me alone in the middle of what felt like a mausoleum for childhood. I tried to shrug it off. After all, how dangerous could an amusement park be after 30 years of neglect? The scariest thing I expected to run into was tetanus. Still, I couldn't shake the way his warnings felt incomplete, like he'd skipped the part that actually mattered. That first night, while I stood under the sagging archway and tried to convince myself this job was just easy money, I noticed something impossible. Off in the distance, through the black trees and shadows of rusted steel, the Ferris wheel flickered to life. My first patrol felt more like wandering through a graveyard than working a job. The place was smothered in silence, broken only by the occasional creak of rusted steel or the groan of wind slipping through hollowed ticket booths. My flashlight beam cut through the dark in jagged slices, revealing glimpses of collapsed food carts, toppled signs, and ride tracks half swallowed by weeds. Every step echoed too loudly, like I was trespassing on something that wanted to be left alone. I was halfway down the cracked midway when it happened. A sudden burst of color lit the night sky, neon spokes of red, green, and yellow igniting one by one. The Ferris wheel, the tallest skeleton in the park, was alive again, its lights pulsing in perfect rhythm as if it had never stopped. For a moment, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The park didn't have power. At least that's what I'd been told. And yet there it was, shining like a beacon against the void, throwing shadows across the midway. Then came the music. Faint at first, drifting like smoke. The hollow, tinny sound of a calliope. A carousel's lullaby carried on the night air,
even though the carousel itself stood in shambles, its horses missing jaws and legs. The melody was slow, distorted, like it was being played through water. I reached for my radio instinctively. Static. Not even a hiss. Just dead silence. I tapped it, shook it, even swapped batteries later. It worked fine when the rides were dark, but when the Ferris wheel spun, nothing got through. The air shifted, carrying a smell that didn't belong. Burnt sugar, popcorn, the faint tang of hot grease. My stomach turned. That scent shouldn't have been there. Not after decades. Not unless someone, or something, was still cooking. I lifted the flashlight toward the Ferris wheel and froze. For a split second, I swore I saw movement. Silhouettes in the seats, rocking back and forth. Dark figures against the glow. But when I blinked, the cars swung empty. I nearly stepped closer. Some part of me needed to prove it wasn't real. But then I remembered the warning. If the Ferris wheel lights come on, don't look too long. So I turned away. I forced myself to keep walking, even though every instinct screamed at me to look back. That was the first time I realized the rides weren't just machines. The next morning, when I opened my locker, there was a folded piece of paper waiting inside. In rushed, uneven handwriting, it said, "Don't let them see you."
The morning after that first shift, the supervisor finally decided to hand me the official guidelines. He didn't call them rules, he called them precautions, like we were handling a bad storm instead of a graveyard full of carnival rides. The list was short, but insane. Rule 1, never ride the attractions. That one seemed obvious, though the fact that it needed to be written down was unsettling. Rule 2, ignore voices calling your name, which raised the question, what voices? Nobody else was supposed to be here. Rule 3, if the carousel starts, cover your ears. I asked why, and all I got was a blank stare. Rule 4, never count the horses. That one almost made me laugh out loud. What was I gonna do? Get cursed by bad math? Rule 5, leave immediately if the funhouse mirrors light up. No explanation, just leave. He rattled them off with the same tired tone someone might use to recite a grocery list. I tried to make a joke, but the words died in my throat when I saw his face. He wasn't joking. He wasn't even blinking. And here's the thing. If those were the rules they were willing to tell me, what about the ones they weren't? Because a park like this doesn't stop at 5 neat little warnings. I know that for a fact. Because eventually, I broke one of them. I wish I could say I lived to regret it.
It was my 4th or 5th shift when I heard it for the first time. Children's laughter. High-pitched, playful, carried on the night air like it had been frozen in time and only now thawed. It echoed faintly through the midway, drifting from the direction of the carousel. I froze. I knew the rules. If the carousel starts, cover your ears. But the music wasn't playing, just the sound of giggles, the patter of feet on concrete. I told myself it had to be in my head, some leftover memory stitched into the silence of the place. And yet, when I rounded the corner, the carousel was spinning. It turned slowly, each wooden horse bobbing up and down with mechanical groans that sounded too much like pain. The paint, chipped and cracked when I'd last seen it, now gleamed wet under the lights as if freshly coated. I stepped closer without realizing it, caught in the hypnotic loop of motion. Then I did the one thing I wasn't supposed to do. I counted the horses. 1, 2, 3, 4. My breath quickened. 10, 11, 12. Wait, I blinked. Hadn't there only been 10 a second ago? I counted again. 13, 14. The numbers refused to stay the same, multiplying with each pass. That's when I noticed the eyes. Every horse on the carousel had glassy black eyes, But now they weren't fixed forward. They were turned toward me. As the ride spun, every head twitching slightly, synchronized as if waiting for me to take one more step. The grinding of the machinery grew louder, sharper, metal scraping against bone, wood splintering like shrieks. I tried to move back, but my legs felt locked in place. And then, nothing. A blink. A gap. I came to standing in the same spot, the carousel silent, the midway dark again. My watch said 2:37 a.m. The last time I had checked, it had been just after midnight. 2 hours. Gone. My uniform was damp. I looked down and saw smears of something dark on my hands. Sticky, tacky. For a second, I thought it was grease, but the smell, coppery, sharp, unmistakable, made my stomach flip. There was hay stuck to my sleeves, as if I'd been rolling in a stable. But there were no stables here, just rides. That's when I realized the rides didn't just run. They noticed me. I swore right then I'd quit, but by the time I tried, I discovered quitting wasn't an option. Not for me. Not anymore.
I wasn't the only one assigned to the park. A week in, I met another guard. Though met isn't the right word. He was just there one night, leaning against the front gate like he'd been waiting for me. He was older, with a wiry frame and eyes that looked too tired to ever close. He smoked constantly, the tip of his cigarette glowing like a firefly in the dark. "You'll get used to it," he said before I even opened my mouth. His voice was gravel, calm, almost bored. "Used to what?" I asked. "The voices, the lights, the smell of popcorn." He shrugged. "It all blends together after a while. Just don't answer back. That's when things get sticky." I stared at him. "Sticky?" He exhaled smoke through his nose. "You'll find out." The way he said it, like it was inevitable, made my skin crawl. "Why do you even work here? Why not quit?" He chuckled, low and humorless. "Quit? People who quit don't stay gone. The park doesn't like being abandoned." I felt my mouth go dry. What's that supposed to mean? He turned toward me then, finally looking me in the eye. There was no malice, no threat, just a flat certainty, like he was repeating a fact carved into stone. "It means you're not here because you took a job." He tapped ash onto the cracked pavement. "You're here because the park picked you. And once it does, you don't walk away." I wanted to laugh it off, to call him crazy, but the words stuck in my throat. He dropped his cigarette, crushed it under his heel, and said, "You've already been chosen." It started with the roller coaster. One moment the tracks were silent, nothing but rusted steel bones against the sky. The next, the chain lift roared to life, rattling up the incline with a sound like iron teeth grinding. The whole park seemed to tremble with it, dust falling from beams that hadn't moved in decades. Then the bumper cars lit up. Headlights flared, sparks crackled, and the little machines slammed into each other with bone-jarring force, even though no one was behind the wheels. They circled in a frenzy, rubber screeching against cracked flooring, crashes echoing like gunfire. By the time the funhouse mirrors began to glow, I was already backing away. Each mirror shimmered with light that wasn't a reflection, but something behind the glass. Figures stood there, wrong, stretched things that swayed like shadows in water. When I turned my head, the movements didn't stop. They kept watching. The park was alive in every direction. Lights flashed in sickly colors. Midway speakers blared laughter distorted into screams. The carousel lurched into motion with a shriek of metal. The air reeked of cotton candy and blood, a sweetness that turned my stomach. I stumbled toward the roller coaster,
And that's when I saw them. The cars were full. Not with people, not exactly, but with pale shapes molded into human outlines. Their faces were smooth, almost featureless, but their eyes were carved hollows that glowed faint white. Every head turned toward me as the coaster clattered up the track, each figure swaying in perfect sync, as if waiting for me to join. The rides weren't running randomly. They were working together, like pieces of a machine, and I was the missing part. I could feel it, a pull in my chest, a whisper under the music urging me to step closer, to take a seat, to belong. The roller coaster crested the hill, the cars poised at the drop, every face locked on me, and in that frozen instant, with the entire park alive and screaming, I understood the truth. The rides weren't performing for themselves. They were performing for me. That was the night I stopped being a guard and became a prisoner.
The night after the park came alive all at once, I barricaded myself in the security office. I couldn't patrol, couldn't even bring myself to step outside. The walls weren't much protection, but they gave me the illusion of distance. That's when I found the logbook. It wasn't hidden well, just shoved behind a filing cabinet, coated in dust thick enough to choke on. The cover was warped leather, the pages yellowed and brittle. At first, I thought it was just old maintenance notes, but the entries weren't about repairs. They were about people. Accidents. A boy who vanished during a bumper car ride, never seen again. A woman who stepped onto the carousel and never stepped off. An entire family that boarded the Ferris wheel and simply disappeared. No bodies, no explanations. Each case written off as equipment malfunction or investigation inconclusive. I'd heard rumors before, the kind of urban legends kids tell each other about haunted parks and cursed rides, but the handwriting in this logbook was steady, clinical, cold. These weren't stories. These were records. And as I read further, the picture became clearer. The park wasn't shut down because of poor attendance or bankruptcy. It was contained, fenced off, locked up, and left to rot, not to protect the park from the world, but to protect the world from the park. That's when I noticed the strangest detail. Nowhere in the book did anyone mention power lines, generators, or maintenance. The rides didn't run on electricity. They ran on something else. They ran on people. If you've ever lost someone in a theme park, someone who wandered away and never came back, maybe they didn't leave. Maybe they're still riding, their laughter echoing through the dark. And if that's true, then the rides aren't just machines. They're feeders, and they're still hungry. It happened on my last shift. Or maybe it was the last night I could still call myself me. The Ferris wheel lit up again, brighter than before, each bulb blazing against the dark sky like a crown of fire. But this time there was no music, no carousel lullaby, just silence, heavy and suffocating, until I heard it, my own voice. Not an echo, not a trick of memory, my voice, rising from the direction of the Ferris wheel, syllables stretched and warped, calling my name. The cars began to open, not like seats, but like jaws unhinging, metal groaning with a sound too close to splitting bone. The gear screamed as they turned, grinding, the whole structure shuddering as if it were alive and impatient. Every light blinked in rhythm with my voice, pulsing with my own words. Come on, come in. I felt it pulling at me, not just my body, but something deeper, like invisible strings tightening around my chest, dragging me toward the base of the ride. My legs resisted, but my heart betrayed me. Each step forward felt inevitable, like gravity, like fate. I tried to fight.
I clutched the edge of the ticket booth, nails tearing against rotted wood. But the harder I resisted, the louder the voice grew until it was deafening. Me calling me over and over, promising relief if I just stopped struggling and climbed aboard. The smell of grease and copper filled my nose, the air vibrating with heat, the cars swaying as though impatient for my arrival. And in the reflection of a cracked window, I saw myself, already seated inside one of them, pale, blank-eyed, smiling, with a mouth that wasn't mine. I knew then what the other guard meant. The park had chosen me. And once it chose, resistance was only a delay, not an escape. If you're hearing this, maybe the park has noticed you too. Maybe you've already felt the pull in your chest, the whisper in your own voice when you're alone at night. The Ferris wheel began its cycle, the cars rising, grinding higher into the dark. I didn't climb in, not yet, but I knew it wouldn't matter. When it comes back down, when it completes the circle, I'll be waiting. And maybe you will too.
I shouldn't have told you any of this. Maybe I've already made a mistake by speaking the words out loud, by letting them travel beyond the gates of that place. But if I've dragged you into the current, the least I can do is give you one last warning. Don't look for the park. Don't search the maps or the old news clippings or the whispers online about where it used to stand. Curiosity is exactly what it feeds on. That's how it notices you, through the act of wanting to know. And if, one night, you're driving down an empty road and you see a glow on the horizon, turn around. Don't convince yourself it's just a county fair or someone testing lights. Don't stop the car to get a better look, because once you've seen the Ferris wheel lights, you're already closer than you should be. You might think you're safe, sitting there listening to me, but I thought that too. I thought rules and warnings would be enough. I thought distance would protect me. Now, every night, I hear the calliope faintly drifting in, no matter where I am. The park is never as far away as you hope. So remember my words. Write them down. Burn them if you have to. Just don't forget. If you see the Ferris wheel lights at night, don't go near them. Because if you do, it'll already be too late.